starting the first segment of the breakfast show with the press review, and we are joined in the studio with Mr. Mohamed Sheta, media expert. Hello, sir, and good morning.
A very beautiful good morning to you and to all your viewers.
Thank you. And we'll start off with the Al-Ahram online, where President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has ratified a new law regulating the country's media outlets. The new law mandates the creation of 3 regulatory bodies to oversee the country's media outlets. The presidential decree to ratify the law, which was approved by the parliament earlier this month, has been published in the country's official gazette. A second law on media and press is set to be discussed by the parliament. According to the constitution, the 3 regulatory bodies should be formed before further laws on the media are passed. Mr. Mohamed Sheta, what do you think about the new law that is ratified by the parliament and then approved by the president?
I think it was very important that we have new regulatory bodies to regulate the media and the press sector in Egypt. I think over the past couple of decades, the level of the media in Egypt kind of lost lots of its credibility in many parts, not only the TV sector, but also the print sector especially. I think it's very important, especially for the state-owned institutions, that there would be a new regulatory body to oversee if the budgets are allocated in a good way or not. Because, for example, in Maspir we have some good programs which lack lots of budget because of the deficit, for example, and at the same time we have some not so good programs which still get money, which is like taxpayer money, and I think it could be invested in a much better way by allocating this money for the good programs, for example. The same also applies for the other state-owned newspaper like Al-Ahram or Al-Akhbar or Al-Gomhuriyya, for example. I think most of the articles published in those newspaper over the past couple of years have not been really in the interest of the reader and consequently in the interest of the taxpayer, although those newspapers are financed by the taxpayer. So I think it is very important to re-evaluate most of the state-owned institutions. On the other hand, also the private media also definitely needs to be regulated. For example, any businessman or any organization can just open a TV channel for a couple of £100,000, for example. Any other jobless person or something can open a magazine for like £50,000 or something, and then call himself a editor-in-chief or a publisher or whatever. So those are definitely things which need to be changed. Other things, for example, there's something called advertorial, which is a mix between an advertisement and an editorial. And everywhere in the world, these advertorials are marked at the top of this article or this feature as an advertorial, and this is not done here in Egypt. So basically, any advertising client can go to any magazine or newspaper, pay an advertisement, and then get a feature which actually the reader might not understand as an advertisement, but as an opinion feature, for example, or as an editorial written by a credible editor. So I think it's very important that we have new rules directing the media in the right direction, especially because also corruption is a very big topic in the media sector. We have lots of we just yesterday we had this huge corruption scandal where the Egyptian authorities found out a huge corruption incident involving one of the officials, where they found like bribes in, I think, up to £150 million or something like this. And we have the same corruption also in the private sector, and especially in the media sector as well. For example, there are some, just an example, just some car companies who are actually paying some magazines to do their PR, for example, or just to write good things about them. And this should not be acceptable, actually. And we need somebody to control this. And if something like this happens, those companies and those newspaper or magazines should be actually fined a very high fine, like it is the case in Europe, for example.
Okay, and moving to Al-Ahram newspaper will read President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Tuesday met with Prime Minister Sharif Ismail. At the meeting, according to the presidency spokesman Ala Yusuf, the president reviewed the result of the meetings that Ismail held over the past few days with the officials in charge of the health sector and pharmaceutical industries to secure the people's need of medicine. Ismail said that the final rationale has been agreed to provide medicine on the market, adding the government's foremost priority is to render medicine available at affordable prices. Recently we had a problem with the medicine, it was called the medicine crisis.
Yes.
The prices of the medicine are going high and some of the medicine disappeared from the market. How do you see the government's effort regarding the medicine and the pharmaceutical needs for the supply?
I said it many times before, we need a consumer protection ministry in Egypt, and we have a very small sorry, we have a very small and tiny consumer protection agency, which is definitely overstrained with all the problems we have, with all the consumer problems we have in Egypt. And this is why we need, like it is the case in most of the European countries, for example, they have a consumer protection minister, for example. And this minister would have enough manpower and enough resources to really analyze each sector, including the pharmaceutical sector, for example, and see, are these companies really claiming correctly that they have made losses, billions of pounds of losses during the past couple of weeks after the floating of the Egyptian pound, for example, or are they just trying to maximize their profit? Of course, we know that the profit margin in this sector is huge, and many companies of them made really billions of pounds during the past couple of years, and of course they don't want to minimize the profit they're getting. So it is definitely a very serious problem. It's not only Egypt which actually is facing this problem. In Sudan, for example, our direct neighbor, they have the same problem also during the past couple of weeks, where some prices were increased, I think 100 times regarding some specific medication. So, and here, of course, in Egypt, it is extremely important because what people fear most is getting sick in Egypt. If you get sick in Egypt, this is really a problem because, of course, most of the hospitals are not that well equipped. So, and secondly, especially after the last crisis, where all the prices went up, and after the devaluation of the Egyptian pound, of course, people are really suffering. And now having to pay even more money for the medication is definitely a huge burden for most of the low-income Egyptians, and hopefully that the government would have an independent committee to really analyze the problem and find a quick and helpful solution for these low-income Egyptians.
Okay, and moving to Al-Wafd newspaper, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is in Port Said on Wednesday to attend the governorate's National Day celebrations. During his visit to the governorate, President al-Sisi will inaugurate several new projects. Sisi will inaugurate Port Said Opera, a fishing development project, and new floating bridge. The president also will hand new factories possessions contracts to the youth. Port Said has been, Mr. Mohammed, for a very long time neglected during the era of Hosni Mubarak, and it was one of the main, it is an important port to Egypt, where most of the goods, and it's kind of a trade center. Yes. To Egypt. Do you believe Port Said will have one more time its glamour that it lost before?
I think Port Said has lots of potential. Of course, the people living in Port Said themselves, they were focusing very much on trade. Especially the people living in the Port Said free zone did not really bother about having anything related to industry, for example, or manufacturing. They were just concentrating on trade, and they were happy with that, and they did some not so bad money at that time during the past couple of decades. Of course, it is very obvious that the Egyptian government noticed we need to focus on production, on producing Egyptian goods and manufacturing made in Egypt products all over Egypt, not only in the Suez Canal corridor. Actually, Port Said, the location of Port Said has the same potential, or had even the same potential, like the Suez Canal corridor right now. I mean, because the location is ideal on the route between Asia and Europe, for example. Opening some fishing development projects is definitely something good. I think we need to have more projects in different sectors as well. And the thing is, I don't see really a clear structure and direction of the government, because on one hand they're opening new projects and giving new possession contracts to young people, and on the other hand many problems are evolving in other sectors. For example, during the past couple of days we had lots of complaints and full page advertisements in the newspaper actually urging President El-Sisi to find some solution, for example, for the investors of 10th of Ramadan City, for example, or the 10th of October investors as well. So I think the government really needs to focus more on finding real solutions on the ground for the businessmen already active in the sector. Not definitely opening new projects is definitely good, but also we need to find solutions for the already running projects. So if this current government is not really able to develop the economy in the way the active businessmen and the serious businessmen, I always put a focus on serious businessmen, because we have lots of not so serious businessmen actually in Egypt, both foreigners, foreign investors, as well as local investors, and I think we really need to find some solutions for them. Otherwise, the investment environment will not be very attractive for foreign investors to come to Egypt, and this is actually what we're looking for. And if the government is not able to do that, then I think a government or shuffle is definitely requested.
And moving to الأخبار اليوم newspaper, well, Lieutenant General Mahmoud Higazi, Chief of Staff of Egypt's Armed Forces, met on Tuesday with Libyan Parliament Speaker, issuing a joint statement of support for the principles declared in a recent Cairo conference to tackle Libya's ongoing civil conflict. The meeting was attended by Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri and members of the Egyptian-Libyan Joint Committee. And to know more about this, we have more in the following report.
Under the auspices of Egypt and with the attendance of Military Chief of Staff Mahmoud Higazi and Egypt's ambassador to Libya, Mohamed Abu Bakr, a meeting was held in Cairo on Tuesday, gathering a number of media figures, activists, and intellectuals who expressed their points of view regarding current events and conflicts taking place in Libya, which had been caused by disputes and that necessitate a collaboration of sincere national efforts to stop them and re-establish a Libyan state, beside defending the country's sovereignty, unity, and realizing people's aspirations and interests. At the end of their meeting, the attendees issued a final communiqué as follows, expressing deep appreciation to Egypt thanks to its relentless efforts to solve the Libyan crisis and change its people's lives with the aim of realizing a better future. Supporting the outcome of Cairo communiqué issued by a number of national powers who met on the 12th and 13th of December in the capital, adopting the Cairo communiqué and putting forward a media speech that calls for the formation of a popular entity that supports and pressurizes legislative institutions to apply the communiqué, promoting channels that communicate with international opinion polls to form powers to effect resolutions issued by the international community, calling for national reconciliation and setting a national law for reconciliatory justice, consolidating serious local media channels and condemning media channels that adopt hatred speech and incite violence and terrorism, confirming the alliance to the culture of dialogue, good behavior, and the right to differ within the framework of achieving reconciliation and rejecting the language of betrayal, supporting and giving confidence in Libyan people's choices and asserting the legislations agreed upon by the Libyan people.
And with this, we come to the end of our press review and the first segment of Breakfast Show. And I would like to thank Mr. Mohamed Sheta, media expert. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Today.
Have a nice day, and to you and to your viewers, of course.
Thank you. And we are moving to a quick break and coming back, so please stay tuned.